So many problems at TTRPG tables could be avoided with a good session zero. So, what is a session zero? Why is a session zero? And how can you run one? Back in the dark ages of D&D when I started playing when I was 12, I never had a session zero. Most of the time, we showed up, made our characters, and started playing that same day without knowing anything about the campaign except for what level we were. But I'm older and wiser now, and I have session zeros before every game that I run, including one-shots. So what is a session zero? Session zero is an opportunity for the GM and the players to all get together and talk about the game before actually starting it. It's also an opportunity to work out any potential issues and prevent any future issues. Or at least try to. So here are the things that I like to cover at my session zeros. First of all, if the players don't know each other, obviously everyone introduces themselves. Then it depends if we've already picked what game we want to play. If we haven't, I might come with a list of 3 or 4 campaigns or one-shots that I want to run and have the group vote on which sounds the most fun. Or maybe we've already decided what game we're going to run, so I come with the elevator pitch of that game and confirm we all still want to play this one, right? One of the next things I will then cover is what type of game it will end up being in terms of split. Will it be mostly combat or mostly social interaction? Or will it be a 50-50 mix? And what type of game do the players want? Do they want a combat-heavy dungeon crawl? Or do they want a combat-light, intrigue-focused game? Making sure that everyone is on the same page for what type of game you want to play can prevent a lot of future problems. Problems that usually arise from the DM and the players, or one of the players, just not quite agreeing on what type of game they were going to play. One of the next things I will cover is fatality. Do we want this game to be one where the PCs have a high risk of permanently dying, or do we want this to be a lower fatality type game? You'll notice there's a big emphasis on what do we want. Because it isn't me versus them, it isn't my expectations and they are lucky to play in it. We are establishing a group desire of what type of game and experience we want, and I, as the GM, will therefore be able to help provide that. Another thing I will go over are safety tools. Ones that I really like using are lines and veils and the X card. Lines and veils is basically just when the players are able to say, here are lines I do not want crossed in the game. While veils are things that are okay to have in the game as long as they're off screen. While an X card is a safety tool for the player or GM to be able to say, no, this what's going on right now I'm uncomfortable with, can we back up and shift it a little bit? Fortunately, in all of the campaigns that I have run over the last 5 or 6 years, no one has needed the X card, and ideally they won't, but it's nice to have. Not only is it nice to have because the player feels safer, it's nice to have as the GM because you know if I cross any lines with any of this content, my players will feel safe telling me. Next, if the players aren't familiar with the system that we're going to be using, I will do a rundown of it. Now, if it's a new system that none of them have played, it's not like I can cover every single rule in a session zero. But I can give them enough that when they go check out the rules on their own, they know what to look for. And also give them enough that they feel comfortable creating a character at the end of session zero. This is also a great opportunity to go over any house rules that are unique to your game. It's really important to explain these house rules up front before the game starts, especially if any of them will impact a particular class or build in your game. For example, in 5e, if you are using the alternate flanking rules, where flanking gives a +2 to hit instead of conveying advantage, you should say this ahead of time because that might impact someone's choice to be a rogue, for example. One of the other things that I will cover before character creation at session zero is table expectations. Things like put your phone away while we're playing, respect each other's time in the spotlight, and just respect each other in general. Then once we've covered the generalities about what story and game we want to tell and talked about the system, we'll all create characters together. I don't mean together as in it's necessarily collaborative, the creation of characters, but we're all doing it at the same time, so if anyone has a question, they can ask it and potentially answer that question for someone else. The goal is at the end of session zero, the players feel comfortable understanding what type of game it is you're going to be playing. The general storyline, how much combat versus roleplay, how fatal, that the players feel comfortable and aware of the system, and that the players have a rough understanding of their character, ideally completed on paper, by the time the session is over. Session 0 is a little bit of front loading in terms of the work, but it's work that is well worth it and will make sure that your future campaign or one shot is so much more enjoyable and stress free for everyone.